Live again here on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. And the numbers are getting a little higher on each platform every time we do this, so very excited. Want to just jump right into what's going on. If you would type in where you're from, we don't need to know who you are because your profile shows that. So where you're from, and if you're watching this live, put an L. If it's on replay, type an R. Those are really the only things I'm going to ask from you. Today I've got an incredibly hot subject. So if you're a network marketer, you know we always talk to you about you have to figure out what your why is. If you don't understand that for some reason, I'll explain it in a minute. What's your why? What's your why? Wow, we're big on what's your why. You've also, of course, if you've done any significant personal development, heard that you've got to figure out what your purpose is in life. And maybe that's not a network marketing thing. Certainly, a lot of people believe your purpose is God's calling for what you should be doing in your life. So we have your why and we have your purpose. And are they the same thing? Are they different? What exactly is your why? What exactly is your purpose? Now, I could literally teach on each one of these things for an hour, but I'm going to do a quick deep dive here because I think a lot of people are a bit confused about this. And I think a lot of people are not experiencing as much success as they should around the notion of this whole thing. So let's just get started. First of all, your why. Now, first of all, when you went on your last corporate job interview, did they say, and where'd you go to school? And what's your work experience? And what's your why? Have you ever been asked that on a job interview? What's your why? Now again, this is one of those words that we use, or phrases we use, like it's common sense and everyone understands it, but the real world doesn't use the term upline, downline. You do understand that. We may use terms like edification. The real world pretty much doesn't use that word hardly at all. So your why, it's not something that people fully understand. So I've seen so many trainings where the speakers in front of the room doing the training said, you have to have a why. You must have a deep, burning, passionate why. If you don't have a great why, you'll never succeed in the business. Now, pause. I may kind of agree with that statement, but imagine being a brand new rep. And if you want to be a trainer in the industry, you got to understand the majority of the people in the room, most of them, every time you talk, are going to be new people. So I'm a brand new person. Number one, I don't know what you're talking about because again, on my corporate job interview, no one asked me what my why was. Number two, even if I've heard the expression, I really don't understand what it is. So I don't really have one. And now you're telling me if I don't have one, I'll never be successful. Do you realize a lot of people are just looking for the first possible excuse they have so they can quit? They've already had their friend, brother-in-law, mother telling it's a scam, it's a ripoff, it's a cult, it's a pyramid, all that junk. They have their own doubts and insecurities, and now you, as the top trainer who's made it to the top of the mountain, are telling them if they don't have a deep burning why, they're not going to make it. They don't have a why, so they walk out. So, not saying you shouldn't tell them that. I'm saying be careful about the way you message things and explain things. I got to tell you, that's one thing I'm kind of proud of with the way I train. I always talk to the newest person in the room and take a minute to explain things. So what is a why for real? And I love it when people go, well, you get someone on your team say, so what's your why? And again, you have to be able to read people well enough to know when they don't know what you're talking about. So you must explain to them a little bit. And here's the way I explain it. I think it's different the way you explain it. The way I explain it is like, look, you already have a 9-to-5 job, right? So you're already busy. And you already have a family, right? And you have things you like to do. You have hobbies. You like to go to the gym. You like to do this, do that. So is it safe to say, long before we ever met, you would consider yourself really busy? Great. Now, we're going to give you the opportunity to build equity in your own business, but you're going to have to find a way to make time to make this happen. So here's the thing, I'm just going to tell you flat out, there's going to be days where you don't feel like it. You're going to have a long day at work, maybe you'll do a little bit of overtime, maybe you hit nasty rush hour traffic on the way home. Maybe the minute you walk in the door, one of your kids or your spouse has an issue and that drains the energy and you've already had a long trying day. There's going to be times you just don't feel like picking up the phone and making calls. You don't feel like going to the presentation or going to the training, right? Just like for the average person, they say, yeah, I want to get in amazing shape. I want to look like the person on the cover of Muscle and Fitness magazine, but I don't feel like going to the gym today. So just so you know, people who do things when they feel like it never become successful at anything, if you didn't know that. So here's the point of the why. What do you want so badly that when you don't feel like it, when you're tired, when you're exhausted, when you're frustrated, when you're depressed, when your upline is being a jerk to you, when the company drop ships something a week late that you were waiting for, when everything's not going right, what is going to get you off the couch, get that phone in your hand, and get you doing the work you're supposed to do? What is it that you want so badly you're willing to push through any of this stuff? Now, some people are going to say something like, I love my wife so much, she works 2 jobs. I want to retire my wife so she can just be home and be a full-time mom. That sounds so good. So then you may go, ooh, that's awesome. Okay, great. That's a good why. On the other hand, you may have someone else going, oh my gosh, like, you know what? Like, I just want to get the whole new, like, Xbox set up, and I want to get this, and I want to get that, and I want to be able to play game. And you're going to go, you know what? That's not a good why. See, that's where you're an idiot. What do you mean that's not a good why? You're telling them what's important to them? So now the young guy or gal who just wants to have the best rig in the world to play their video games, because at this point in their life, that's what's important to them, you're telling them it's not good enough. So now they're going to make up a why like, yes, I want to retire my mother because she works so hard. But that doesn't drive or motivate them at all. So you got to let them pick. You know what my first why was? My first why was I wanted to get out of credit card debt. I was buried underneath a mountain of credit card debt. Thank God some of you guys weren't my upline, because you would have told me that that wasn't a good enough why. It's not. See, there's a difference. Here's a big point I'm trying to make today, between your why and your purpose. And if you think your purpose is reaching the highest rank in a company, you're definitely doing way too many drugs. That cannot be your life's purpose. What happens if when you hit the highest rank in a company, now your life's purpose is over? So getting a new car is not your purpose. Getting material things is not your purpose. It's got to be much deeper than that. But you should have a why. Now, your why will probably or may change and evolve. Maybe it won't. And your why may be your purpose. I had a friend years ago who grew up in inner city New York in a not very privileged area, and he was able to go to summer camps all the time, and his burning why he became a really successful network marketer, is he wanted to get enough money to go out and start his own summer camps and be able to take hundreds of kids from the neighborhoods that he grew up in and be able to have them come experience summer camp the way he did, because it was becoming less and less frequent. That was his why. It was also his purpose. Can you see where those two things together can be the same? But on the other hand, for me, my why was getting out of credit card debt. Once I got out of credit card debt, it changed. And my why became getting a new car. I thought I wanted a Jaguar when I drove a Jaguar. If you have a Jaguar or whatever you call it, wasn't my thing. I ended up getting a Mercedes. I've had Mercedes ever since. I love Mercedes. But getting a brand new high-end car was a why. Then getting a Rolex, not this one, I have a couple watches, but that was my why. A lot of my whys were very materialistic. That was my level of emotional whatever at that point. So whatever someone's why is great. If it's gonna get them off the couch when they don't feel like going to work, that's great. Maybe we should call it an action motivator instead of a why. So again, when you explain this, let them know if you do have a really strong why, it's better, not critical, but it's better, because there's going to be days you just don't feel like going to work. So if you have something that's going to get you off the couch when you don't feel like going to work, something's going to drive you through those times, then that's much better. So that's pretty much what your why is. I wouldn't even talk to a brand new rep ever about what their purpose is. That's hardcore stuff. Most people have never stopped and tried to figure out what your purpose is. Now, for me, the best book, if you're really trying to figure out your purpose, is a book called The Alchemist. Paulo Coelho, amazing book, and it's a story. It's great because it's just a story about a young man way back thousands of years ago, and he's trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life. And it's easy to read because it's not bullet points and steps, do this, do that. When you're done reading the book, you would really have to be very, very not bright to not get the point. And the point is this. When you are walking in your purpose in life, when you are doing what God has called you to do, so to speak, that's what most of us believe anyway, then all of a sudden you're going to be swimming with the tide. All of a sudden the wind's going to be at your back. If you have been doing something for a long time and it seems like you're always swimming against the tide, it's always hard. Though you never seem to get the right people to come into your life, whether it's relationship, whether it's business, whatever you're trying to do, that's a great sign you're not walking in your purpose. Because when you are walking in your purpose, in this book, it basically says that everything in the universe will start to conspire to make things work, to make your dream come true, to get you to be able to walk in your purpose properly. Now, if you do believe in God, that makes a lot of sense. God's everywhere all the time. So if he knows what's in your heart, and if he put that dream in your heart, and you're now walking towards making that a reality, I don't know what more we could do to please God. So try to figure out your purpose. Now, I went to seminar after seminar after seminar, and I thought I had found my purpose. Like I had written it down in a book what my purpose was. But I was doing a podcast a week or two ago with a really cool guy named Fraser Brooks. If you don't know him, you should check him out. Network marketing trainer, generic trainer. And we were talking about a couple things, and he made me remember something I had completely forgotten. So I'm a rep at this point in the industry for somewhere around 15, 16, 17 years. And I'm on a cruise. I won a trip, an incentive trip. And I'm that guy who, like, at that point especially, I could never unwind. I could never chill out. So being on a cruise ship, you know what I mean, was an opportunity to have no Wi-Fi. Very little. There were cell phones, but it wasn't like it is now. So I really had a chance to unplug it. I brought a book with me. Now, I used to read every book you could imagine when I was on planes and stuff about how to be a better closer, how to be a better promoter, all personal development books. But I hadn't read a book for pleasure in a long time. Now, I am a Washington Redskins fan. I guess I have to say a Washington football team fan. This is the coach of the team that was called the Washington Redskins for years. They just changed their name. And before this guy became their coach, they had never won a Super Bowl or World Championship with him. They won 3 of them within a short period of time. So this is his autobiography. So I'm like, I had picked this book up, and it had sat on my bookshelves behind me for years because I was always too busy. I didn't feel like I had enough time to just read a book for pleasure, which, by the way, is not a good way to balance out your life. We'll talk about that on a future deal. So I haven't read this book, so I popped this book open onto the first page, and it says, and I quote, "I was 40 years old and had been pursuing being a head coach all of my adult life. I had been an assistant coach at 4 major universities and several NFL teams, but I had never had a head coaching job anywhere, not even in high school. I realized now is the time for me to be a head coach." So when I read that, I had been a trainer for many different companies and organizations. And when my mentor asked me many years ago to be one of his trainers, to this day, it was one of the greatest honors of my life, and I fulfilled that job and that role of being a first lieutenant, if you will, for years and years and years. But then after I stopped working with him, I filled that role somewhere else because I didn't feel, for whatever reason, worthy of doing my own thing. So I always wanted to run my own training company. I always wanted to be the head coach, but I had that inner doubt and all that garbage going on. So I picked up this book, I read that line, and that's the only book or line I've ever read in this book, because I immediately went back to my cabinet. Back then I had legal pads, and I started writing like a lunatic about starting my own training company. That was the beginning. Now, at the time, I was a trainer. I was also a rep. I was the #1 income earner in a network marketing company. And after 3 or 4 years, I'm just telling you, God will open the right doors and bring the right people in. I was in this company. The owners of the company were like my parents. It was a perfect setup for me. I thought I would do that the rest of my life, so I was trying to balance how I was going to be a top earner in one company and still be a trainer. And then all of a sudden, things changed dramatically in a way I could never imagine. I met people I'd never met. It was literally, in my life, a miraculous turn of events. And some of it, by the way, wasn't good. In order for me to leave that company, some bad things had to happen that really upset me, that really angered me. But how many of us have heard the Lord works in mysterious ways, or everything happens for a reason? See, everything happens for a reason means everything happens for a reason, not just the things that are good. So if you're walking through a bad season right now, it's okay. Listen, with COVID, a lot of people, with lockdown, a lot of people walking through a bad season. Think about how many people have left their traditional job, and it really has created financial chaos in their life. I can't wait 5-10 years from now to see all the people who are becoming legends in our industry, who are making 7-figure incomes, and they would have never even gotten involved if it hadn't been for what's going on right now. Maybe you're that person right now. The point is, for me, everything was working, but I didn't understand it at the time. Stephen Jobs, in his speech at Stanford, does a great job of saying, when you're in the moment, you can't see why it's happening the way it is. But years later, you turn around and you look back and you can connect the dots and see why this person came to your life and see why this bad. Think about Stephen Jobs. He got fired from his own company. If he hadn't been fired from his own company, he would have never started Next. If he didn't start Next, none of you would have one of these. I mean, the whole iPhone, iPod, iPad, iThis, iWatch, iWhatever, a $1 trillion company would have never happened if he hadn't gotten fired. So everything does happen for a reason. You just have to believe it, and you have to be walking in your purpose. And for me, my purpose was to be a trainer. So God politely got me out of that company, got me connected with an amazing company called World Ventures, who I've been repping with, or the director of training with, for 15 years. Plan on being there another 15 years. I love the company. I love the owner. I love the top leaders. It's amazing. And it's allowed me to walk in my purpose. I'm doing what I know God put me on the planet to do. So everything just works for the good. I've been able to bless so many people. It's amazing to me. Oh, just in World Ventures alone, well over 1,000 people have made $100,000. That to me is remarkable. I mean, that's a lot of people making that kind of money. And over 100 people have made over $1 million. Again, and it's not me at all. Definitely not me. It's me doing what I was drawn and called to do. So again, guys, if you are getting good results or not good results, great results are still out there, but you got to figure out what your purpose is. And don't worry about it. If you haven't found it, when the time is right, you will find it. I don't know if you're going to open up a book and read it. I was about 40 years old when I opened up a book and read it. I had been out there. I made a lot of money up to that point, but I had not found my life's purpose. So ever since that day happened, for the last 20 years, I have been joyful. Even through rotten days, I've been joyful because I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and I know that I have so much more to do before this is all over. Now, I can see that's not the same thing as my why. My why has been many different things over the years. My why to this day, right this minute, is different than what my purpose is. So it may be the same or it may be different, but you need to be aware of what your why is, because that's what's going to drive you guys. You've got to develop discipline. There is no substitution for hard work and discipline. But for now, when you're new at the business and you don't have the habit of making those calls every day, doing those presentations every day, you must figure out a way to get yourself a why. It doesn't have to be something that everyone is going to cheer for you. It's not for the benefit of anyone else. It's not for your sponsor. It's not for anyone else. For you, what's going to get you off the couch every day? Let's figure that out and really do your best. Spend some time, quiet time, and really ask yourself, what am I here for? What am I supposed to be doing? And when you do find it, wow. And read The Alchemist. If you're having a hard time figuring it out, read The Alchemist. Because when you've got a why and you're walking in your purpose, life is truly, truly meaningful. So that's all I've got. If you like this, please share it. Let us know. L for live, R for replay. And also remember, if you buy Living in Full Color, you go to marcaccetta.com. Or you can go to World Success Coach, if that's easy to remember.com. Go and buy Living in Full Color. There's a couple of bonus tracks there that have never been released. And if you buy that between now and the 31st of this month, we're going to do a special webinar only for the people who have purchased with some super cool information I've never gotten into before. It's going to be wonderful. Anyone who gets Living in Full Color between now and midnight on August 31st is going to have a really special webinar in the early part of September. That's all I've got for today. Thanks for tuning in. Saturday, check it out. Get a lot of people to come here on Saturday. Saturday, I'm going to teach you some very key things about public speaking. I've had so many people want to do this. I used to do a seminar on this that cost $3,000. I've worked and trained many people who become exceptional public speakers. So it's going to be some basics. Again, this is going to be 20 or 30 minutes. But anyone you know who wants to be a successful speaker, anyone who just wants to get better at doing presentations or Saturday trainings, have them tune in next Saturday for sure. Spread the word. Thank you so much for listening. God bless all of you. This is great stuff. Please get it out to as many people as you can. See you on Saturday.